Good afternoon. My name is Anggara Maulana,
Good afternoon, my name is Merlijn.
and today we are going to talk about our story that we read for book report. You may start, Merlin.
So my book is called Shadow Slave. I picked it because I really enjoy reading fantasy and I like to spend my time reading on the couch. What book did you pick and why?
Uh, I picked Hansel and Gretel. The reason why I picked up Hansel and Gretel is because I am interested to the story of Hansel and Gretel on the way how they survived the Great Famine. This
Okay.
was during 18th century Germany. So, in your book, what's it about?
So my book is obviously a fantasy. It's about this dystopian world where there is this virus going around, or at least it's called a virus, called the dream spell, and people that get the spell um, will be sick and becoming sleepy, and eventually they have to sleep. And when they sleep, they go into the dream world, where they have to face trials and overcome their limits. So it's very interesting to read and definitely keeps you on edge. And was your experience what you expected with Hansel and Gretel? Did you know it before you started reading it?
Uh, I know very little about Hansel and Gretel. I thought it as a mere fairy tale, but the moment I read the opening about the Great Famine during the 18th century, I was hooked because it tells the protagonists are experiencing some sort of struggle, and that struggle gives character depth to everything to the setting.
And could you relate to your main character, your protagonist?
Yes, I could relate to the protagonist. It's because the struggle. They struggled and they didn't complain or like be angry about it.
Okay.
Instead, they find a solution and they use that solution to fix their struggle.
Okay.
And about your book, Merlin, which character interests you the most?
Well, there's like three main characters in total. It's like a group, and the main character himself is called Sonny or Sunless. He's very cunning, but he grew up in the slums, um, so he didn't have any money. He had to struggle to survive, and because of this, he's very distrusting. Definitely in the first part of the book, very distrusting, and couldn't really make friends. So I really found him interesting. I wouldn't necessarily say I relate as much because it's a way different kind of personality, but the way he develops himself and changes in the book to be more open about himself and be more friendly towards his party members definitely resonated with me. And for the other characters, you have two female leads. They're very headstrong and interesting, but I wouldn't. You don't get to know enough about them in the story um, to make an accurate judgment.
Okay.
And how long was your book? And did you enjoy your reading time?
Yes, I indeed enjoy my reading time. It's not exactly too lengthy of the story because the story are dependent on how from which source I find the book. And the most interesting character I found in Hansel and Gretel is not just the protagonist but also the woodcutter. The fact that the woodcutter defied the stepmother's suggestion to abandon Hansel and Gretel made me realize that the woodcutter cares so much about his child that he is torn to pick a moral choice. So that resonates about making difficult choice in life.
Okay, I see. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I can't say that it's the same in my book. There are definitely some hard choices to be made, but definitely in the first book, it's more about overcoming trials and difficulties, where you're not having much human conflict. That appears later, and it's definitely very interesting to see how the protagonists deal with human struggles and human conflict, especially the morality of it. They only recently came into the role that they now have in this cruel world, and now they have to make choices that they never had to make before. And you definitely see the internal conflict, and it even creates conflict in the main protagonist's group, in the way they deal with death and sacrifices made for the greater good. So it's a very interesting arc and experience to have. And what about your story, Mountain? Is it like normal, or is it different from most books?
It's pretty normal. There is the rising action, there is drama and climax. But about the story, man, how about your book? How do you read the ending and why?
Well, it's very interesting, because it's a web novel, which means it constantly releases more chapters. The amount of words in my book is about 1.5 million, so it's like 10,000 pages. And what I've been talking about right now is the volume 1, which is only one tenth of the book that's been released so far. So about the entire ending, I can't speak much, but the volume 1 ending was very satisfying, because he is able to overcome his first nightmare. That's what they call it when they go into the dream world. They go into their first nightmare. It's a trial. If they complete that trial, they get powers, and because of how successful his first trial was, he got like a very special power, and the description in the book was absolutely amazing. It was really
Nice.
cool. Yeah, it's amazing, beautiful to read. So I was very happy about the ending, at least in the first volume, and honestly the book didn't get worse at all afterwards, so perfect to read. How about yours?
As much as the ending for my story, it's
Let me check the time real quick. Probably small. Can we check the time? Oh, we can't. Okay. So
so
we can keep going.
so the ending to my story is very heartbreaking. From a struggling woodcutter and the two desperate Hansel and Gretel ends up in a much more prosperous, because since Hansel and Gretel escaped from an evil witch and reap her wealth so that it can benefit from the woodcutter and Hansel and Gretel,
Okay.
it puts the story in a perfect ending where the family ends up in a happy ending.
And to make a closing statement for our dialogue, would you recommend your book to others, or abstain from it?
I would recommend this story to like children, more like
Children,
yes,
yeah.
children, because it's a fairy tale.
Uh-huh.
But what about your book?
I would definitely recommend it to people who want to read fantasy, but it also has a lot of conflict and adult issues that arise. So definitely good for any age past early teenager, I would say, just for personal development as well. So,
That's it.
yeah, that's it. Well, thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. See you next week.